Good morning, lovelies. Let's talk about how not to write women. You would think that after thousands of years of storytelling and writing, we would be able to easily write a character with the same demographic as half of the human population. But the shameful amount of media out there keeps falling on the same tired stereotypes and tropes. I thought I would share 10 of the worst tips that I have ever heard when it comes to writing women in science fiction and fantasy, in the hopes that you will never, ever follow them in your own writing. Please! Number 1, there must be a literary reason she is not a man. Otherwise, it'll be too distracting for the audience. Why though? Women are 50% of the human population. It makes sense for 50% of your characters to also be women, with very few exceptions. In fact, excluding women is going to be far more distracting for your audience. Anyone who is distracted by a woman character being active and integral to the story has some internalized sexism to work through. They're also probably distracted to see a woman's whole shoulder when she wears a tank top. Oh, the scandal! She doesn't need a literary reason to be a woman. Her narrative arc does not have to revolve around her being a woman or beating the patriarchy. Yeah, it's cool when stories do that. I'll be the first to say that Mulan is and always shall be my favorite Disney movie. But when it's every single one of them, when every woman in fiction has to justify why she exists, that's not liberating, it's exhausting. Can she just not be? Like, can she not just show up in a kick-ass superhero or military sci-fi or fantasy adventure story and not have to dedicate at least an entire paragraph as to why she, a woman, has the audacity to stand there and contribute to the plot? You're acting like your characters and audience have never seen a woman before. Get a grip. Number 2, you only need one woman in the story, maybe 2 if you want the main character's mom or sister to make an appearance. Doesn't matter if you have a cast of 5 or 50, one major female character is all you need. No more token girls. Writers have a tendency to default to male characters outside of very few specific archetypes because we're used to male characters dominating our bookshelves and stories, outside of the romance and erotica genre. Should not have used the word dominating, huh? Look, it's just another example of erasing women from spaces we have every right to exist in. And then these writers will include one major female character and use that as an excuse to say, I'm not excluding anyone, I wrote a whole woman in my story. Look, that may have worked at one point in time, but not anymore. To avoid this, some writers I know use a coin or even a die to ensure that they have an even cast. They will flip that coin or roll that dice on every character, letting fate determine who is what gender, and then tinker with the plot as needed. I would recommend using a d20. If you get a crit, that is a trans or non-binary character. Number 3, unless she is the main character or the main character's relative, she should totally fall in love with the hero. It's only logical. Yeah, unless she's a lesbian or a romantic or just doesn't want a relationship. Say it with me now. There is no law that says you have to write a romantic subplot in every story. It doesn't exist. You don't have to do this. Some stories do benefit from such a subplot, but most really don't need it. If the only reason you are writing a major female character is because you want your main male character to get laid, then you need to rewrite your character, your plot, and your internalized misogyny. Oh, speaking of romance, number 4, every major female character must be sexy. She's the main character, sexy. The main character's love interest, sexier. The villain, sexy. Is there anything inherently wrong with a character who enjoys being sexy and who others are attracted to? No, of course not. Those people exist and they have every right to do what they do. Is there something wrong with making it a requirement for every major female character? Yes, absolutely. Unless you're writing erotica. If this piece of writing advice is something that you will live and die for, then just go write erotica. That's literally what it's there for. Look, plenty of women out there prefer fuzzy sweaters and sweatpants over lingerie. Plenty of women are completely incapable of flirting and become awkward bumbling messes when they're within 10 yards of their crush. Plenty of women prioritize efficiency and results over looking hot and toying with men's emotions. Please make these women some of your characters. Personally, I love seeing traditional badasses who slaughter entire battlefields of enemies turn into adorable, stammering, blushing messes around their crush. It's like watching a vicious guard dog turn into a puppy. It's adorable. Number 5, if she's not sexy, then she must at least be beautiful and thin. Preferably white too. Also cis-het, neurotypical, and able-bodied. I mean, you're already putting in enough diversity just by having 2 X chromosomes in the same character. No, you're not. If you have a major cast of 12 people in a zombie apocalypse story, then you can make 6 of the women and any number of that does in any other minority group. Women do not have to be beautiful. That feels like a much more radical statement than it is, but that's because 99% of all major female characters are described as beautiful. It's an emphasis, or at least that they're cute. She also does not have to be thin, or slender, or curvy in all the right ways. Blah. Fat women exist, and fat does not necessarily mean unhealthy or selfish. As for the rest, I mentioned in my worst writing advice video something about intersectionality. Intersectionality is the study of how multiple group identities relate to each other, both as groups and within the same person. White American women have different advantages and obstacles than Asian American women, even though we're all women and we all experience sexism. While researching for my science fiction novel Citadel, which comes out next year, I learned that there is a fascinating, by which I mean horrifying, discrepancy between autism in men and autism in women. How doctors diagnose it, how they treat it, and how the rest of society treats them. There's also a major discrepancy in autism in white people versus autism in people of color, especially Black and Latino boys. In your cast of a dozen people who have to work together to survive the zombie apocalypse, you could have 2 autistic people in that group, 1 white woman and 1 Afro-Latino man. They could bond over their similarities, or they could try feeding each other to the zombies. Limiting yourself to only 1 or 2 diverse characters, in this case women, does yourself and your story a disservice, because there are so many different ways that humans experience the world. Give us a bit of that color in your characters. It's going to make your story really cool, interesting, and unique. Number 6, if you want her to be a strong female character, she cannot show any emotional vulnerability or have any weaknesses. Ever. So I guess you want her to be a robot? I mean, even Wonder Woman had moments of emotional vulnerability. That's what makes us human. We all have moments of doubt, of grief, of defeat, and hopelessness, and we rely on our friends, our family, some sort of community to help pull us out of it. Or, barring that, time to pull ourselves out of it. Including those vulnerable moments does not mean that she is no longer a strong female character. On the contrary, including those vulnerable moments are required to making her a realistic, relatable character. As for weaknesses, everyone has weaknesses. We all have those things that we just can't do, and incorporating those weaknesses into your woman character does not automatically make you a sexist. I made a suggestion in my previous Writing Women in Sci-Fi and Fantasy video, which I will link in the card so you can check that out. I suggested using gaming stats to help you figure out the strengths and weaknesses of your characters and how they play off of each other. My example was Dungeons & Dragons, but most RPGs work. She cannot be the muscle, the brain, the healer, the leader, the dexterous thief, the holder of the team brain cell, and the super suave flirt all at once. She can excel at 1 or 2 of those, maximum. Like, that's her job, that's why she's there, that is why the team has her around. At another 2 or 3 of those, she is varying levels of decent. So she's not a doctor like the team healer, but she knows basic first aid. So while it's not going to be the best patch job, it'll keep the teammate from bleeding out until they can get him to the professional. As for the last 2 or 3, she will make that situation a whole lot worse. So, go sit in the corner please while your friends deal with this. You can mix and match those in unique ways. I encourage you to do that. There are so many options here, and it is the interplay of strengths and weaknesses that make your characters both entertaining and relatable. Number 7, she needs to have been raped or assaulted in her backstory, or even on the page. That's the only way that a woman is capable of being strong. Bullshit! I covered this in detail on my video on rape and sexual assault in fiction, which I will put in the cards for you to check out. While it is true that trials, obstacles, and difficulties can strengthen a person and push them into growth, implying, however subtly, that a woman must be raped in order to achieve the same level of character strength that a man has is insulting, especially to the assault survivors who are going to be trying to enjoy your book. If a man doesn't need a rape in his backstory to justify his motivation, strength, and grit, then a woman doesn't need it either. There are plenty of ways to piss off your female character and get them suitably bitter and jaded for your anti-hero needs. Someone stole from her, pushing her and her family into poverty. Someone betrayed her trust. Someone killed her dog. The list is endless. Number 8. The only way to write a strong female character is to have her be masculine, preferably a fighter. She cannot be feminine in any way. But if the main character is a guy, she cannot be stronger or a better fighter than him. Okay, I need to break this one down. Strong female character just means a female character that is written well. One who contributes to the plot, feels like a whole person, and is preferably a protagonist. That's it. She can be a fighter or pursue other masculine skills, but that's not a requirement. She can be feminine and still be a strong female character. The idea that she can't is linked with the idea that femininity and anything else associated with womanhood is bad, while masculinity and anything associated with manhood is good. It's the same reason that women wearing jeans doesn't even raise an eyebrow anymore, while a man wearing a skirt can and sometimes does make national headlines. Jasmine from the original Aladdin isn't masculine at all. In fact, she uses her femininity as a weapon to get Aladdin to tell her the truth, and later to use it to distract Jafar. She can't fight, but she's still a strong female character. We also have characters like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who can fight, but outside of that is an otherwise very feminine person. In contrast, there are plenty of women characters out there who can fight, but they are not strong female characters because they are so flat and two-dimensional. You can probably list several in the comments. Look, I say this as someone who prefers seeing masculine, badass fighter women, because that is who I have an easier time relating to. But just because Arya is my favorite Stark girl does not mean that I don't also enjoy seeing Daenerys and Sansa figure out politics. As for the second part, why can't she be better than the hero? Why is he her glass ceiling? I am no expert on the male ego, but I would bet quite a bit of money that the male ego is responsible for this. Again, men and masculinity are seen as superior, better, upgrades to women in femininity. So having a woman beat a man in a masculine field is not only surprising, I imagine it's also deeply uncomfortable for a good chunk of the male audience. At least the ones who can't get over themselves. And do you really want those guys to be a part of your fan base? Number 9. Despite being the best fighter that all the other characters know, the woman character still needs to be captured by the villain and rescued by the hero. No matter how much this clashes with her aforementioned status as a total badass warrior woman and just generally intelligent person. This is called the faux action girl, and I hate it. The faux action girl, as defined by TV tropes, is when a character who is said to be a strong female character, what they call an action girl, never actually wins a fight, outside of maybe her opener, and needs the hero to keep bailing her out of trouble. You've put all this work and energy into creating a woman capable of not only taking care of herself, but taking down anyone who gets in her way. Why are you throwing all of that away for a cheap, contrived romantic moment between her and the hero? If you really want your strong female character to be rescued by the hero, there are ways of doing that without infuriating your audience. I've got 2 pieces of advice for you. Number 1, for every time the hero rescues the woman, she gets to rescue him back. He saves her from a kidnapping. Later on, she brings the cavalry when he is surrounded by villains. He beats off the goons that were about to kill her. She gets to disable the doomsday device that he is strapped to right before it hits 0. Tick for tack, every time. And number 2, make sure the circumstances of her becoming a damsel in distress are actually believable for a badass of her caliber and don't clash with her established character. Simply grabbing her wrist isn't enough. I learned how to escape that when I was 6. And if she is a master con artist who has built her entire survival around being smart, then she's not going to be dumb enough to turn on all of the lights and sounds and other attention-grabbing noises of an amusement park during a zombie apocalypse. Good God, that ruined the movie. If she defeated 6 men at once in an earlier scene, then she needs to be dogpiled by 20 minimum. Maybe the villain is holding someone she loves hostage, so while she could beat her way out of this, she won't, because that person will get hurt. Maybe she is sacrificing herself to save the hero. Maybe she turned on that amusement park to distract the zombies that were about to discover and chomp on the hero as part of her own narrative arc of learning not to be selfish and learning to love and trust again. That would have been such a better climax in Zombieland. Point is, the strong female character turning into a damsel in distress needs to be treated with the same amount of respect that you would give the male character that you're gonna damsel. And number 10, if you need to motivate the male character to do something, or just add a dose of tragedy to his backstory, then kill off a woman he's close to. Preferably a wife or girlfriend, but mom or sister also works. Cram as many bodies as you can into that refrigerator. In case you didn't know, this is called the woman in the refrigerator trope, officially named after the Green Lantern comic where his villain kills his girlfriend and then shoves her body into the refrigerator for Green Lantern to find. This was done purely to motivate Green Lantern to do the thing. It is literally, you kill off a woman to motivate the guy. This trope treats women like objects, property, extensions of men with no purpose or significance outside of them. If you're going to kill off a woman, then do it in a way that gives her narrative arc a satisfying, cathartic ending. It doesn't have to be good catharsis, it can still be tragic. It can even motivate the surviving characters to do whatever the plot thing you need them to do. But it should be more than just, she died, he's sad and does the revenging. Again, maybe she has a narrative arc revolving around learning to be selfless and caring about others, and completes it with a final sacrifice that kills her but saves everyone else. Or perhaps she used to be a villain and this is the end of her redemption arc. Or her death is a tragedy brought upon her by her own fatal flaw, like Macbeth's ambition, Hamlet's inability to commit, or Othello's impulsive rage. These deaths will pack a lot more punch because by the time it happens, we have already grown attached to this woman, just like the rest of your characters. So we're going to relate a lot more to their grief, rage, and pain when that woman dies, rather than just having her be a note in someone else's backstory. I do provide professional manuscript critiques in case you're feeling a little bit nervous about your manuscript right about now. I will read your work before it's published and tell you what's up. You can find that information in the description of this video. And be sure to check out my other videos on writing advice that is hopefully more helpful than what we talked about today. I will see you next time. Bye, lovelies.